A chance meeting in Phuket. A story brought to you by Drama Spark. Narrated by Robin. People spend months planning the perfect holiday. They research the best beaches, the best bars, the best restaurants, the best sunsets. I did exactly the same thing. Only I never imagined the best part of my holiday would be someone I already knew. My name is Robin. I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how a boy's trip to Phuket turned into the beginning of the greatest love story of my life. It all started with a promise. 5 of us from my army days had been talking about taking a proper reunion trip for years. Life had gotten in the way. Promotions, marriage, children, business trips. Somehow, every plan fell apart before it ever happened. Then one evening, one of the guys sent a message into our old group chat. Phuket. 4 days. No excuses. Within 10 minutes everyone had replied. Booked. I'm in. Already applying for leave. Just like that, it was happening. The plan was simple. Beach during the day. Bar hopping at night. Eat too much seafood. Talk about the old days. Pretend we were still 22. I had absolutely no idea that the trip would become something entirely different. The first afternoon in Phuket was exactly what we'd imagined. The weather was perfect. The sea sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. Street vendors filled the air with the smell of grilled seafood and fresh coconuts. My friends were already planning which bars to visit that evening. Robin. Marcus called. Tonight we're starting at Bangla Road. I'm in. First one back to the hotel buys breakfast tomorrow. Deal. Everything was going exactly according to plan. Until it wasn't. Late that afternoon, I wandered into a small cafe near Patong Beach to escape the heat. As I waited for my iced coffee, I heard someone say my name. Robin? I turned around. For a second, I couldn't believe my eyes. Michelle? She laughed. I can't believe it's really you. The last time I'd seen Michelle had been nearly 6 years earlier. We'd attended the same junior college before taking completely different paths in life. Back then we weren't especially close. But we'd shared enough classes and mutual friends that we'd always greeted each other warmly whenever we met. And now, halfway across Southeast Asia, there she was. She looked different. Not unrecognizably different. Just more confident. Her smile was exactly the same. Bright enough to make you smile back without realizing it. I thought you looked familiar, she said. What are the chances? I'm here with my army buddies. She pointed toward a nearby table. I'm here with 4 girlfriends. I looked over. They were already smiling knowingly. One of them gave Michelle an unmistakable thumbs up. Michelle immediately rolled her eyes. They're impossible. My friends aren't much better. We laughed. Then we spent nearly an hour catching up. It felt surprisingly natural. As if 6 years had quietly disappeared. That evening my phone buzzed. Marcus where are you? First bar. I looked across the cafe. Michelle and her friends were discussing where to watch the sunset. Without thinking, I typed back. Running a little late. Marcus replied almost immediately. Already? We only landed today. I smiled. I should probably meet my friends. Michelle nodded. You should. But... She hesitated. We're going to Promthep Cape for sunset if you're nearby. I smiled. I might accidentally end up there. Marcus looked horrified when I told him. You're skipping bar number 1? I'll catch up. For who? An old friend. The entire table went silent. Then everyone started laughing. Oh no, Jason said. Our holiday is over. It isn't. It absolutely is. Marcus pointed at me dramatically. I know that smile. What smile? The one that says you're interested. I'm just catching up. Sure you are. The sunset that evening was breathtaking. But if I'm being honest, I barely noticed it. Michelle and I talked for nearly 3 hours. About work. About life. About everything that had happened since graduation. She worked in marketing for an international travel company. She loved exploring new countries. She'd already visited 15. I admitted I'd spent too many years saying I'd travel one day. She smiled. Looks like today's finally here. The next morning my friends were already teasing me. So? Marcus asked over breakfast. Seeing your mystery girl again? I don't know. My phone vibrated. Michelle we're visiting Old Phuket Town this afternoon. You're welcome to join us if you like. Jason leaned over. Is that her? No. You're smiling. I always smile. You absolutely do not. I spent the morning on the beach with the guys. We laughed. Played volleyball. Talked about the army. But every now and then, I found myself checking the time. At 1 o'clock I stood up. I'm heading out. Marcus looked at his watch. Already? I'll meet you tonight. Jason laughed. You mean maybe? Old Phuket Town turned out to be one of my favorite places on the island. Colorful buildings. Small cafes. Street musicians. Hidden bookstores. Michelle wandered slowly through every little shop. She appreciated details. The architecture. The murals. The local crafts. She wasn't rushing to tick attractions off a list. She wanted to experience them. I found myself slowing down too. One of her friends whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. You two walk like you've been dating for years. Michelle laughed. We're not. Yet, another friend added. That evening I finally joined my army buddies for bar hopping. Marcus handed me a drink. So what? Tell us about Michelle. I smiled. She's funny. Jason interrupted. He's gone. What? He didn't say she's pretty. Marcus nodded. He noticed who she is before how she looks. Jason sighed dramatically. Our boy is finished. I laughed. You guys are unbelievable. Marcus grinned. Robin. When a man skips Bangalore Road for museums and cafes, he's already in love. The final day arrived much too quickly. Michelle and I walked along Kata Beach just before sunset. Neither of us wanted to mention that tomorrow we'd both be flying home. Eventually she spoke. It's strange. What is? I've known you for years. But this holiday. She smiled. I feel like I've really met you for the first time. I nodded. I was thinking exactly the same thing. The waves rolled gently onto the shore. People laughed nearby. Children chased the tide. Everything felt peaceful. Then Michelle looked at me. So? Yes? What happens when we go home? I smiled. We have coffee. She laughed. Just coffee? We'll probably need dinner too. And after that? We'll see where life takes us. She smiled in a way that told me she hoped life had already decided. Back in Singapore, coffee became dinner. Dinner became movies. Movies became long walks through gardens by the bay. Weekends were suddenly something I looked forward to all week. Nothing felt rushed. We weren't trying to impress each other anymore. We were simply enjoying each other's company. One Saturday, I introduced Michelle to my parents. My mother hugged her within 5 minutes. So this is Michelle. I blinked. You knew about Michelle? My father laughed. Son. You've mentioned her in every phone call since Phuket. Across the table, Michelle tried not to laugh. The following weekend I met her family. Her father shook my hand. So you're the army friend who kept disappearing from bar hopping? I looked at Michelle. She covered her face, laughing. You told them? My mother noticed I smiled every time your name appeared on my phone. Months passed. Birthdays. Family dinners. Weekend road trips. Christmas celebrations. Both families somehow blended together as though they'd known each other for years. One evening Marcus invited all the army boys for dinner. Halfway through the meal he raised his glass. "I'd like to thank Michelle." Everyone looked confused. "For what?" He grinned. "She finally convinced Robin to stop canceling our reunions." Everyone laughed. Michelle squeezed my hand beneath the table. "I only suggested inviting me along." Marcus smiled. "Best suggestion anyone's made." Exactly 1 year after Phuket, I asked Michelle if she'd like to take another holiday. She smiled knowingly. "Where?" "Phuket." She laughed. "The same cafe? The same beach? The same sunset? And maybe..." I reached into my pocket. One very different ending. I knelt on one knee. Right there on the quiet beach where we'd first wondered what would happen after the holiday ended. Michelle. The best thing that ever happened on a boys' trip was meeting an old friend who became my favorite person. I don't want another holiday without you. I don't want another ordinary day without you either. Will you marry me? Happy tears filled her eyes before she even answered. Yes. Of course, yes. As the sun dipped below the Andaman Sea, she wrapped her arms around me, and I realized something beautiful. We had traveled hundreds of kilometers looking for adventure. My army buddies wanted unforgettable nights, loud music, and stories to laugh about for years. They got exactly what they wanted. So did I. The difference was, my favorite memory wasn't a beach, or a bar, or a sunset. It was hearing someone call my name in a little cafe halfway across the world. Sometimes we think we have to meet someone new to change our lives. But every once in a while, life brings back someone you've already met. Not because your first chapter was finished, but because the real story was only just beginning. And every few years after that, Michelle and I try to return to Phuket, not to relive the past, but to celebrate the place where an old friendship quietly became a forever kind of love. I hope you love what Drama Spark bring you. Story is written by Pearl.